Welcome to the Agency Bud podcast. On the show, we talk to agency owners and business owners, CEOs, startup founders about their biggest challenges, what makes them tick, and how they got their agencies or businesses to scale and grow. Overcoming challenges, it's what we do. Let's find out about these business owners. You can follow along with every episode at podcast.agencybud.com. We'd love to have you on board. Agency Bud is the platform for delivering increased revenue to businesses and agencies. Find out more at agencybud.com. Let's go and meet our special guest for today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Today's special guest is the legend and the beauty behind the Twitter handle Anonymous Beard. He tweets about hockey, politics, humor, and video games, but rarely in the same tweet. He actually, taking that away, is the managing director of DirectiveConsulting.com with the head office out of California and offices all over the world. They are a pay-per-click and Google advertising specialist with lead generation and business helping as their main thing. They describe themselves as a group of pay-per-click savants, creative masterminds, and non-stop lead generation heroes. Today's special guest is none other than Jesse Silen. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me, man. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. And that is the warmest welcome I think I've ever had. So
it's definitely deserved, man. It's definitely deserved. Now, you're the managing director of Directive Consulting, which is an incredible role to hold with the offices that you have all around the world. But you started in video game design and editing. Is that right?
So I started, where do people start? I guess, where I started getting a paycheck was definitely a retail, just kind of slaving away, selling people products and doing that whole thing, which I think a lot of people either kind of start in food or you start in retail, some sort of service thing. But then I took, a passion of mine, which is video games, and turned it into another passion of mine, which is writing. So I was actually doing a lot of, interviews, reviews, previews, writing for gaming magazines. I was writing for MySpace for a while, back when that was a thing. Just kind of doing the freelance writing gig and turning that into, well, is there a way I can maybe get a game for free, if I'm going to review it? Or is there maybe I can get into this conference or something like that? So yeah, just trying to find, doing the hustle of how do I take the things that I love to do that I'm going to do already? I'm going to buy this game already. Is there a way I can maybe spin it so I can make a little cash off of it, get a little extra invitation? And that was, I did that for about a decade. I mean, it was really an awesome part of the life. Yeah.
Fantastic. And how did you go from then? So, I've talked to a lot of people who've had great gaming channels and that kind of stuff, and review channels on YouTube, and they tell the story where getting one of the guys we interviewed, Eric the car guy, actually had one of the car dealerships just roll a car up to his front door and say, "It's yours, man." He had like 2 million YouTube subscribers. Just do a review of the car for us. So how did you go from there to maximizing and optimizing pay-per-click marketing? Like, that's a big jump for me.
It's funny. I feel like the more and more I talk to marketers, I hear a similar story where they didn't go to school for marketing. They didn't know anyone in marketing. They didn't know anything about marketing, and yet they somehow found themselves in marketing. I was very similar. I was doing retail for about 10 years. I had done one too many Black Fridays where I was just kind of done with it. And I'd always had this passion for numbers, analytics, data, things like that. But I never had a way to express that other than my own side projects and things like that. I had a friend who she was doing creative directing at an agency, a small boutique ad agency. And I just said, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut. I'm willing to try a brand new career. You really shouldn't hire me. I don't know anything about your space, but if you throw some spreadsheets in front of me, I promise you I can come up with something. And that intrigued the president enough to give me a shot. And within a couple months, I found myself managing all of their pay-per-click stuff because the president didn't want to do it anymore, and I don't blame him. He should be doing other presidential stuff. And I kind of spun that into, well, what's SEO about? And I kind of, self-taught, going through the Google courses that they have out there, learning about PPC, learning about SEO. I already had a little bit of web dev background, just again, being nerdy and kind of figuring out stuff out. And yeah, after a while, I was at that agency for about 2.5 years and came to have my own portfolio of accounts and supporting in a bunch of different areas. And I just really fell in love with, the idea of crafting that perfect message or just making that tweak or optimization. And every day you check in and the number goes up or the number goes down. That's a very addicting feeling. It's a very thrilling experience.
It's like trading to this day for clicks.
Absolutely. I mean, you really do. You can really gamify, these things in a way that works for you. It's like playing a game, right? That you put more hours into it, you level up, or you become a stronger character, or whatever. It's very similar here. You put the hours into a paid account. You put all this time and research and effort into it, and the next day you wake up and boom, there's your reward, right? You get something for it. So
fantastic.
In this case, it just happens to be money for people who are putting money into paid clicks. But yeah, it's been cool.
Heck of a reward. So
Yeah.
Jesse, I'm fascinated because you mentioned that the more you talk to marketers, which I find interesting, because everybody's in that space. There's two schools of thoughts, and I was reading about this the other day. But the school of thought that marketing, we were talking to one of our previous guests, Sonny, was talking from a very creative perspective. So Sonny's worked with Nike and Adidas on some of their big advertising campaigns, and Sonny was talking about that creative edge. And he was saying, his agency came up with the Stickman campaign, and it was all about what can we do at a creative angle that has the cut through. And then the other school of thought is that marketing is more about the numbers and about the statistics and about the analysis and the optimization. Where do those two things meet in your mind?
Great question. I mean, Mad Men would probably be a terrible TV show if you just watched Don Draper filing through papers for 3 hours.
Right.
But instead, you need the guy to come in to make the wild pitch to really get people sold on the dream and the vision, right? So that's what's cool about working at an agency is I work with extremely creative, visionary people who can come to a meeting and wow both myself and a client. And then we also have people, and sometimes they're the same person, sometimes not, who can then follow up behind that and say, okay, that vision, when put to reality, resulted in this ROI and these numbers, whatever. And you do need both because the vision without the data, you're going to fall flat generally. And the data without the vision, well, then where do we know where to go? Right. So for us, it's about having a healthy balance as an executive team, and then on specific accounts too. Some accounts don't need a lot of creativity. They have an amazing brand. They've already done the research. They've already figured out their market. They need someone to just drive. Hey, we're at X. We need to be 2 or 3X, right? And that doesn't mean we need to start from the ground up and reinvent their messaging. And other clients, that is what they need. They're stuck. They've been saying the same thing for 20 years. They're a legacy brand, and they are maybe thinking about a new market or talking to their market differently, and they do need that creative side. So it's cool that we can provide both, but you definitely need both, in your holster for whichever one you need to pull out at whatever time.
Which do you get more excited about? And no, actually, don't answer that question because I'm sure you get excited about all your clients. So let me ask that in a different way. Yep. How do you know when you're sitting in a boardroom, obviously, as you mentioned, you've got an incredible team of creative people around. Mm-hmm. How do you know when a campaign's going to be a hit? Is it a gut feel, or is it some sort of tangible magic that makes you go, wow?
Yeah, I guess it depends, which is every marketer's favorite 2-word saying. So I apologize. I've said a few times.
And it should be tested.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it depends. And what I mean by that is definitely I've had those moments in a meeting where I'm like, man, that is it. These guys just solved this problem. I am so excited to get it going. And there's other times where that paired with some historical data. If you can bring in historical data and context into that moment where you have that big pitch and that big vision, that's when the stars kind of align and you're like, oh, we can definitely do this, right? This is definitely going to work. I think the vision, big picture stuff is a lot of, I think this will work. I hope this will work. When layered with here's what we've done and here's what it's done and here's where we think it'll go if we make this tweak, that's when you get the big eyes, like, let's pull the trigger right now. Let's pull this lever.
I'm interested to know, out of how many campaigns that you put forward, how many wins versus how many lose? Like how many hit it out of the park, or in hockey terms, how many hit the back of the net? Like how many hit the back of the net versus how many, end up being a foul and like, okay, well that didn't play.
Oh, it's not even close, man. It's a 99-1 on the losses to the wins. It's
is that right?
Oh yeah, I think any marketer worth their salt would freely admit that, and we tell people that up front. We tell people that in the sales process. I mean, if you're coming to an agency saying I need results within 30 days, well, something's happened. Something's happened to the point where you need that sort of immediacy, and there's something we should be telling you about our product. It would be bad of us to walk into an engagement saying, "Oh yeah, 30 days, no problem. Let's get this figured out." Right? We got to figure out your market, your messaging, your product, your value propositions, your competition, all these things, right? So, yeah, absolutely, you're going to fail. But the cool thing about failure is that if you're doing it right and you're tracking that failure along the way, there should be a couple things happening. One, there should still be a small win one way or the other, right? Like, yeah, maybe this campaign was a total bust, but we noticed via heat map data that they clicked on this button a ton of times. So this messaging right here is perfect. Okay, let's take that out. Let's extract that as a win. Everything else goes in the trash. So we do revision 2. Let's put that button back in and pair it with this thing. Okay, that worked plus this other thing worked. The whole thing was trash. And as you do that and as you iterate, you'll eventually get to that win, and then you'll eventually start humming at the pace that you want to. But yeah, you're going to crash way more than you're going to fly.
So that's an interesting point. But one of the things that you said there was more. I want to dig into a little bit more if it's possible. Mm-hmm. So out of the gate, like we're talking first iteration, 99-1.
Yeah.
how many can you turn around out of those 99 that are like, oh, okay, well, like we just need to keep tweaking. We need to keep moving this forward.
Yep.
Here's a customer set of 100 customers. 99 of the first iterations of the campaigns that you ran for them didn't hit, big time. But how many of those 99 then become something incredible over, say, the next 2, 3, 6 months as you're moving forward, tweaking, testing, changing little bits?
Yeah, good question again. So I think for the majority of those, you can still find success. The things that the intangibles that come up are things that are outside of your marketer's controls. And any CMO or marketer will tell you this, that, if I get hired to take over a product that says we want to take down Nike and they make a shoe that's 10 times uglier and 10 times more expensive, I could be the most creative genius in the world and I'm probably not going to hit their goals, right? So there are things about their product, things about their pricing, things about their market that are outside of the marketer's controls that are going to always have an influence on results. But with iteration, if those things aren't in your way, then you should absolutely be able to find success one way or the other.
So turn those 99 into 90 wins and 9 losses, perhaps.
I would love to. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So again, Jesse, if I can just dig in just a little bit, again, talking about some of those things that are out of your control as you're looking at it, you're working with a new client. How often do you sit in that initial kind of let's get to know each other meeting and walk out going, yeah, this is not for us?
Ooh, I don't know if I'd put a percentage on it, but definitely it happens. And when it does, we're pretty transparent about it. It doesn't make sense for us to engage in a relationship that we know is probably not going to end well. And we've definitely gone the route of like, hey, we're not a great fit, but we know a couple agencies who might be, and here's why. We'd much rather that be the scenario than us taking someone's money, then 3 months later, everyone hates each other. And then you have this, this poor experience with one another. It doesn't, the nice thing about what we do at Directive is that we've been very clear with our own messaging about who we want to work with.
Yeah.
So because of that, if you come to our site and you don't necessarily see yourself in our logos, you don't see yourself in our messaging, the chances that you're going to fill out our form are probably pretty low because you're like, I don't know if I'm here just yet, or I don't focus in this area. They seem to focus on this area. And I think some agencies are pretty good about that. Like, hey, if you're this, put your hands up. If not, maybe try somebody else. So I think that part of it is we've done a really good job with our rebranding over the last couple of years to really focus on our own messaging. And then the second part of it is that they think that they do fit. Once we have that kind of discovery call, we like to know a few things about them. Like, what is your organization like? Like, what's the structure internally, right? Like, do you need us to drive everything? Do you have an internal team we can work with collaboratively? What does the past look like? What does the future look like? Like, we want to know a lot about who they are, both as a company and as marketers too. Like, we hold ourselves to very strict kind of value props about ourselves, about our transparency, about how we work as human beings. And if we get the vibe in a lot of those early meetings that the people that we're talking to don't necessarily hold our same values, that's really going to sway us heavily on the final decision. Because at the end of the day, we want to make the decision working with them, not just them making the decision to work with us, right?
Yeah, cool.
It's a privilege to be in that spot. Not every agency can do that. So I don't want to act as if, be choosy with every lead that comes through your door, because I get it. At certain points, you just got to do what you can do.
You need to.
But at this point, I think it's really important for us to work with clients that we'd want to work with, because we're proud of their name. We're proud of being, associated with them.
Nice. Very cool. So noticing that, as you said, you've really niched down into what you do at Directive Consulting.
Right.
You've been with the team about 3 years. What's changed from as a managing director? Like, you've come in with the big hat on, right? And you've taken over a creative organization that was already running, 3 years in. Yep. You've stepped in and said, okay, let's fine tune this, and you've grown along the way. What's changed from where you took over to where you are now?
Yeah, a lot. We're a very fast moving company. 3 years ago, when I started as a PPC specialist, that's what my first role was. I saw opportunity right away to potentially move into account management. From there, to having some creative ideas on how to run account management, which were very well received. And that led me to running that team. And then, that led me to running a bigger part of the team. And I've always just liked that ability to have the growth here. Like any good business person, if you make the case of why this makes business sense, then you're probably going to have a good, shot of doing that even internally. So the things I've seen change is one is really the niching. 3 years ago when I joined, we knew what we wanted to do. And from a product perspective, we were niched down. SEO, PPC, design, basically it. And we'll tell people, hey, if you're looking for email marketing or direct mail, that's just not us. Like, we'd love to do it, but we're only going to do what we're good at. We're not going to do what we're bad at. So we were getting there when I first started. We're 100% there now.
Nice.
And when we first started, we had a pretty wide collection of clients. And our goal was, like a lot of agencies, get as many clients as you can, really flex your muscles. And I think we've learned over the last 3 years that it's not about how many clients you work with, it's about which clients you work with. And we've been a lot more selective about the verticals that we work with. So we primarily service enterprise level clients in the SaaS space and the software as a service space. So business B2B, that's really where we do best. And we do have some B2C clients and some e-commerce and things like that. We don't want to ignore those places completely, but we've found that we have a lot of data, a lot of expertise in those areas. Something that 3 years ago, we were just starting to figure out. Now we've got it figured out, and we've designed our internal marketing around it, our sales process around it, and our operations around it, right? Like, how do we do SEO for B2B SaaS is a very different question than how do you do SEO?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So your skill sets can get more fine-tuned, more specialized in that specific vertical. And as you go in to the next pitch, you can take that credibility with you as you're moving forward as well.
Yeah, we get to show potential clients. Here's a dashboard of 50 software clients in North America. Here's what the spend looks like over the last year, and here are these trends that we're seeing. Right, like that's very powerful.
Yeah.
And it shows a lot of confidence to prospective clients that these guys know what they're talking about. They're not just dipping their toe into the water here. They're the right person for us. And conversely, it tells people who we're not the best fit for, you know what, you guys aren't the best fit for us. Thank you for being transparent. We're going to try somebody else, and that's fine too.
Makes it easier. So I'm looking, Jesse, you've got, I think I'm counting about 25, 26 people on the About Us page of Directive. How many actually are there? Is there more than that?
We need to refresh that page. Yeah, I think we're up to about 50 right now.
Wow, fantastic. So what's the breakdown in terms of marketing, sales, admin, fulfillment? Like how many in each team?
I would say on the actual product, on the operations side is the majority, probably about 2/3.
Yep.
There's probably about a little under a dozen of us on kind of the executive side. And then we do have we actually just hired a director of sales to kind of rebuild our sales department a little bit, which is fantastic. A couple account executives, a couple people doing internal marketing. What's kind of cool is some of the people who do our internal marketing are still people who do some of our client marketing. And it's really exciting because they get to kind of treat Directive as a client. Like, hey, I'm learning this thing with this other client. I'm going to take it to Directive and help fuel us. And conversely, because we rolled out a couple pieces of software ourselves, so we're learning a lot about how to market our own software.
Nice.
That then we can then turn around and use for our team. So yeah, it's a pretty strong mix, but I think we've built it in a way that we have a lot of people doing the work, but we're also special in the sense that, and I'll pat myself on the back for it because I do think it is special. Our people who work on accounts only work on 5 at the most. Nice. And that in the agency space is kind of blasphemous. Like most clients, most agencies are built one of two ways. It's either you have 100 clients and 10 people, and each person's working on 10 clients and they just can't get quality time to get their work done. Or they have 10 clients and 100 people, and that's okay. But if you lose one client, you got to lay off 10th of your staff. And we didn't want to be either one of those models. They just didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So we have it to where everybody gets, at least a full day's worth of time and attention, no matter who they are. And that's really been, and again, it's a price of privilege. We had to work to get there, but now that we're there, we really feel like we're in a special spot.
Nice, really cool. Yeah. Did you plan that, Jesse? Like, did you and the rest of the team sit down and say, this is what we want Directive to look like in a few years' time? Like, was that a deliberate set of steps, or did it just kind of accidentally happen?
Absolutely. No, we definitely have the vision 2-year plan meetings, directors retreats to talk about the future of the company. We're very, what's the right word? We spend a lot of time and are very focused on where are we going to go? What's our vision? How do we get there? And then actually turning that into quarterly OKRs. What are we going to do as an operational team, as a team to actually get us to our vision? It's important that you do that. I mean, otherwise you're going to fall behind. I think one thing we always tell ourselves is if we were starting an agency today from scratch, what would we do different? And if we can come up with a couple of things, why don't we start doing them now? Well, a great example is Slack. Slack has become this, ubiquitous software that everybody uses. Good on them. I wish I invested really early. And that's the thing where most agencies would just ignore that. They would use it internally, but the idea of using it with your client was just like crazy. Like, why would you do that? They're going to bug you all hours of the night. It could be all these drawbacks. And we thought, well, if I was a scrappy young agency right now, I would absolutely do that and cut the older competition out of the way and say, this is what people want. This is the modern era of communication. So we adopted Slack as a way to communicate with our clients. And we saw awesome results because people were, you get that email in, you just see that subject line. You're like, oh boy, what's this all about? Right? Like you just have that moment of anxiety. And that same question or conversation in a Slack channel, the stakes are just lowered. The tone is lowered. You can get things done quicker. I can ask you for approval in a second across the world. And that has become a really powerful thing. So that's just an example of like,
nice.
Where do we want to go? How do we want to be better? Let's just do that now. Let's test that this quarter. Let's test that with a third of our clients and see how it works.
I like it. I think that's a really amazing way to think. So from let me go from a personal perspective. Like in a personal space, I've learned from an entrepreneur in the same way you have. Getting started. You did retail, I did hospitality, but getting started, you find yourself into a space, you find yourself into an entrepreneurial role, and the next thing you know, you have to step into a leadership. So you start yourself. Now the next thing you know, you've got 5 people on the team. You've taken that next step up, which is now you've got 50, 60 people on the team, and you've got other people at an executive level. How much of your day is spent at that exec level planning and strategizing for the team rather than hands-on, with the next Google campaign?
Yeah, great question. It's funny. We were talking about this as a team today about I forget the guy who wrote the essay about the maker schedule versus the manager schedule. And that's a reality is, at the executive level, you can really break down your day hour by hour, half hour by half hour. You have an open spot. You don't have an open spot. If it's open, we can book a meeting. If not, we can't, right? But you do have to be mindful of, I need to take 3 hours at least to really come up and craft this strategy. It needs to be, unbothered time. I'm muting Slack. I'm turning off my phone and take the time to do that. I think a lot of executives find themselves trying to balance that manager versus director thing, which is I'm a manager of people. I need to be in front of them as much as I can. I need to be able to get that feedback as much as I can, and not taking the time to actually direct and lead and say, sorry guys, I'm shutting this. This is my time. And it's not just my time because I'm selfish. It's my time because I need to build the future for us. I need to figure out where we're going to go. And I think as long as you have proactive communication, you can do that. But to answer your question, I think it depends, right? Every week is different. Yeah. When we have quarterly business reviews coming up in a couple of weeks, right now it's all hands on deck. Let's go into strategy. When it's not, it's maybe mid-month, mid-quarter, you can spend a little more time thinking of the future, thinking about where you want to go and things like that. So it kind of depends on where you are in the rhythm of things.
So what would a normal day look like for you then, Jesse? Like, taking from are you a 4 a.m. kind of wake up guy, or what's a day in the life of Jesse these days?
Oh man, I'm more of a 4 a.m. going to sleep guy.
Yeah.
So day in life, if I'm working, say 8 to 5, 8 to 6, it's really mostly meetings all day long. But I like the meetings that I have. I think a lot of people hate the meetings that they have. I'm in this cool spot where I'm not necessarily the brains behind the PPC or the SEO side. We have really talented SEO directors, really talented PPC directors and leads, guys who just really, guys and gals who really understand their craft really well. And I can play in there and I can hop in and give a cool idea here and there based on my experience. But where I really thrive and where I really enjoy what I do is really being a part of the human strategy. So I'll get to know you, Walter. What are you all about? How many kids do you have? Where do you live? What's your favorite place to go eat? What's your birthday? What really matters to you? What does your boss care about? What are their KPIs? Where do they want to go? The more insight I can get from you on that stuff, the more insight I can bring to the team and say, okay, I get you're going to launch this PPC campaign and you're going to hit all these numbers and everyone's going to love it. But were you able to take down the one competitor that their CEO stays up all night thinking about? Yeah, right. I know who they are and I have an idea of how we're going to do that. Like that's just, I try to add that other human strategy element to the entire dynamic we have. So I get to have awesome conversations with our clients separate from our weekly and bi-weekly calls that say, hey, let me just know what you're all about this quarter. When you step into a boardroom, a board meeting in 2 weeks, what's the thing they're going to grill you on? Because I want to guarantee that our team is aligned with where you are.
Nice.
Things
do you do that a lot, Jesse?
I do. That's I would say about half my job is just really having the client interface there. It's just an extra element because most agencies and most account managers, they just don't have the time to have that kind of conversation because they got to figure out the budgets, they got to figure out the ad creative and the landing pages and all that stuff, right? So they're not necessarily even thinking about kind of that bigger picture stuff where I get to sit down with someone at the end of their day and say, hey, you're a CMO, you have a boss who is expecting the world from you. You know, how do we do that? Where do we get? And then we come up with some cool stuff. I get to bring back the team, and then we get to deliver it together. So that's where I spend a lot of my time, and I love it.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think the being able to deliver that at a personal level, like as you said, so what's keeping you up at night? Let's help that. And you know, we're not saying that you can come in with a silver bullet and say, now all your problems are gone away. But if the directive consulting team is aligned with your client in terms of really what are they struggling with, really what are they having a problem with, you can align the campaign and at least the thinking in the same way, so that your creative guys going into their you know, drawing out kind of stage are thinking about that client from a personal level. I think that's really, really cool, Jesse.
Absolutely. And we've always said, like, we want to be the Nordstrom of search. We want to be the McKinsey of search. We want to take things to a different level, have exceptional customer service that you normally just don't expect from an agency.
Nice.
And yeah, that's that extra element where, you know, two agencies can come up with the same campaign, but the one that tailored it to your personal expectations, beliefs, fears, goals is going to be the one who wins at the end of the day.
Yeah, very cool. So let's take a what if scenario, Jesse. So now that you've had the opportunity to work with some incredible people, you know, over there at Directive, you've got guys like Garrett and Tanner who are at the top of the tree there. Now that you've had the experience of working with these guys, let's take a what if. What if we took you out of Directive Consulting, we dropped you in a foreign city with no Rolodex, okay, no contacts that you've built up over these years. And we said to you, Jesse, start an agency. What would be your first 5 moves in that space?
Oh man, do I have access to LinkedIn? Because that is definitely my first move. Okay, great. Yeah. You know, LinkedIn is one of those, you can call it a necessary evil, but it really is such a lifeblood of definitely the marketing world, but the business world in general. I would definitely be looking at how many first and second contacts I have in whatever city I am. My second tool would be Twitter. I'd be on there immediately with all the followers that I don't necessarily have, but that the people I follow, talking about what I can do in their city, what I, you know, things like that. And then third would be businesses. So it would be marketers, you know, marketers for the networking, marketers on Twitter for the community, and then businesses specifically as well. What is specific about this town, this country, this market? You know, I'm not going to be the American who steps in and says, I think I have all the answers, but I want to be the guy that says, I have, you know, plenty of years of experience doing this before, and I'd love to know what I can do to help you guys out. So yeah, definitely leaning on the network. I think any marketer worth their salt should have a network that is pretty strong, that can help them solve questions and problems that they don't know the answer to. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. Some marketers I think are going to give you the other answer that, you know, they'll just figure it out and they're going to hustle 24/7 and do all that kind of stuff. But I'm more on you know, work smarter, not harder. So
yeah,
what can I do to lean on the community to get stuff done?
I like it. I think that's very cool. So let me ask you this. That's a really cool answer, by the way. I like it, and I think that's the great way to start any project in terms of let's make some noise in the current little pond that we're in, and see what stirs up so that we can step in there. So now you're sitting with a client. Let's say that you've used that LinkedIn, you've hit those Twitter networks, you've hit a couple of business local, you know, networking meetings or whatever. And you've met someone, you've handed over a business card. Here's somebody that runs a great business. You know, they're a building company, whatever. They've got 10 employees. You're sitting down with them and they say to you, Jesse, I've never done any marketing before in my entire life. I don't even know where to get started. What's your conversation with that person? Like, how do you carry that forward?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I mean, it had to come back to their goals. What are their goals? Like, if, you know, back in my older agency days, a lot of the clients we worked with, they forever had relied on executive sales, right? They knew a guy who knew a guy, they went to a barbecue and they signed a deal, and that was like how they started their whole company. And that's incredible. It's a great story, but it's not sustainable, right? So you just have to figure out what their goals are. And if their goals are sustainable by executive sales and maybe one cold outreach person, then sure, you know, keep doing what you're doing. But if they want to go public, if they want to compete with X or Y, you know, Z competitor, if they want to grow by X or Y percentage, then you got to start being serious about how you're actually going to bring people into your business. You know, people don't think about marketing channels sometimes as this lifeblood. Maybe they have an old school mentality, or again, they've fallen on success in one way or the other. So they just don't think of marketing as a necessary thing. And we see it all the time with certain clients. And that's why they hire CMOs, because, you know, the CEO or the CTO or you know, however that person came to be at the top of the organization, they never needed marketing to get where they got. So the people who surround themselves, like any good person should, with people who know things that they don't know, and that CMO saying, we have to get into marketing, and here's why. I think that's where we can help out. But yeah, it would start with their goals, just figuring out like where are they trying to go, how fast they trying to grow, what does their market look like, and go from there. And at the end of it, if I say, you know what? Yeah, you're not ready. Which is some things we've had to say to some people. It's like, we'd love to engage with you, but who's going to work with us on a biweekly basis? You are the CEO who has 1,000 other things to do. Like, I don't think you are. And I want to save you from the inevitable conversation where you're saying, I like what you're doing, guys, but
I don't have time to fulfill it.
Exactly. So I say, okay, come back when you've hired a CMO, come back when you have a salesperson to actually follow up on the leads we're going to be driving for you. Come back when you've, figured out a developer thing, because we're going to want to launch some new landing pages and things like that. Like, there's an infrastructure to marketing that a lot of people don't think about. And they just think, oh, I'm going to hire an agency, or I'm going to hire a person in-house, and they're just going to go. And, there's extra cost, there's extra time, there's extra thought process that goes into actually making it work right.
I agree with you. And I think you just laid out a great kind of strategy for a business plan. You need a salesperson who's going to follow up on the leads. I love that statistic from Forbes that says 96% of leads never even get followed up on, which is just unbelievably shocking, considering how much time and money we spend chasing those or trying to generate those leads. So you need someone who's going to follow up on the leads. You need someone who's going to be able to take directive and implement it. You need, certain things in place that are going to work. Jesse, from your perspective and being the analytics guy, mm-hmm. what I come across a lot of times with business is people say to me, they have that whole crossing the chasm thing. I don't know if you've read that book, but mm-hmm.
Where
you get to the point where I'm so busy that I need another staff member, but I can't put another staff member on because I haven't got enough revenue to pay the staff. So there's always that kind of small business, and I see it typically around the 3 staff members to up to 10. Like once you get past 10, you're on a growth pattern and you can hire to perform. In your opinion, and working with business and seeing companies growing through different stages as you've done, when is the right time to bring the next person on?
I think, again, it depends on your product, but that's a big part of it, is if you don't have your product, your pricing, your market, and you don't necessarily have to have your messaging, but you have to at least figure out, okay, what am I actually bringing to the table? Like what makes my product or service so different, special, awesome compared to the rest of the market? If you don't have that part figured out yet, you can't even start thinking about marketing yet, because the marketing team is just going to come back to you and say, well, we can't win these battles because we don't do this fast enough, or we're not this cheap, or our scope doesn't do this. So you got to figure out your product first and foremost, and then you got to figure out your market, which I know it sounds like, why would you figure out your market before your marketing? But really, you got to figure out, like, who are we actually going to be targeting? Like, who is this for, right? Like, if you're in the SaaS space for security, are you going after the CTO, or are you going after the developer who's actually doing it? Those are vastly different targets, vastly different conversations you're trying to have. So I would say product and brand first. Brand is another big one that people don't think about. They assume maybe that the strength of their product should just be everything, when in reality, people are reviewing you online for who you are as a company, as a brand, right? We've seen brands get taken down with one poor public comment and things like that. They might still love the product, but now the company's, forever ashamed because of some way they've represented themselves as a brand. So brand and product, I think, are probably where you need to start first, before you think about what the marketing team is going to do. Because the marketing team is only going to be as strong, can only be as strong as the product that it's actually trying to market, and the market it's trying to market to. So you got to have those two things kind of dialed in before you can start thinking about marketing.
Nice. So let's take a. I used to have a 60-second challenge. I'd like to bounce that back off you. So the 60-second challenge goes like this: somebody you haven't seen in a long time, you catch up with them for a coffee or a beer or something, mm-hmm. and they say to you, Jesse, I've got this. I've started my own thing, mm-hmm. and they've got a company. So they've defined their customer. Mm-hmm. They've made some sales. They're pretty amazed by the fact that what they thought of is real and is taking shape. And they say to you, how am I going to grow this thing, Jesse? Like, what do I do now? I've done my market research. I've got my product to an acceptable level. I've got traction, customers real, but I have no idea how I'm going to make this thing go boom and turn it into the next unicorn. 60 seconds. What's your thoughts for that person?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is prove it. Prove the fact that you got all those things down, because I doubt it. And within you trying to prove it to me, I'm going to find out the areas that we need to double down on. So if it's paid, right? If that's an area that we can maybe help you out, something called impression share. How often do you show up when someone searches for your product or solution? If you're not at 100% for the right market that you need to be in, that's where you can grow. That's a big one. If I search for you in Google, right? That's where we all live and play is Google. If I search for your product solution, how many times do you show up? There's potential 4 ad spots up at the top. There's 10 organic listings. Are you on those 10 organic listings at all? If you are, how high? If you are, but I have to kind of dig for you, why? Is there a way that we can get up higher? Even the biggest, boldest, baddest brands we work with, the biggest budgets, still don't have that domination, because that domination is extremely difficult to have. That's the way Google builds it, right? They want to take your money for that domination. But there's also just a part of the game that requires some nuance. You have to think of, every keyword is a sales channel. So you might think of, some sort of software versus some sort of tool. And those two search result pages are vastly different for whatever reason. How are you showing up for software? Are you showing up just as much as you are for tool? All those things would come into my feedback to this person is, if you think you've really, done a lot and you want to grow the next spot with some other big thing, I would challenge the idea that you've really got to figure it out where you are right now. We can probably grow within then, and then figure out the next thing. And maybe that's a product iteration. Maybe that's a way to talk to a different market that we've never talked to before. But we still got to, there's a lot of room, I think, on stage 1, where a lot of people are still have room to grow there.
I like the concept of how many times do you show up? And especially when we're talking about SEO, we're talking about making sure you have that domination of the world's biggest search platforms within Google. How active should any business be in terms of content generation?
Oh, man. A ton. I mean, here's the thing. Google, we've always held this philosophy. Google does not rank websites. It ranks web pages. So if you want to rank for best CRM software, right? Good luck showing up on the top 10, because what Google has shown is that users actually don't care about one product. They don't want to just see the self-proclaimed best CRM. They would love to see a list of 50 CRMs that are all ranked by, price and capabilities and integrations and things like that, right? On the flip side, if you can provide a piece of content then that maybe rounds up the top 15 in your opinion, whatever, you're probably going to do a lot better than if you say, hey, look at us, we're the best CRM in the industry. Content is huge, and especially not just content itself, but knowing, just like we talked about before, knowing who this content is designed for from a persona stage, but also the buying stage, right? Some customers might be ready for the what is piece of content. I'm just kind of dipping my toe in the water of what your universe is, right? But some people might be ready for the this versus this type of content. There may be more a little bit of the middle. And then finally we have like the ultimate value, or like you really go to more of the value prop type piece of content. Content generation is huge. I mean, to put it bluntly, in the SEO world, you cannot expect new traffic if you don't provide new content. That's just it. People are going to eventually run out. People are going to stop finding your old content. Your old content will eventually fade away. So you constantly have to be generating new content, and it has to be targeted. We've seen a lot of people who are great at the generation part. Every week they have a blog. Every 2 weeks they have a blog. And it's like, who's this for? Where's it going back to? How is it affecting the rest of your site? What's the action when they get there? What's the value? And that's where we come in and help them out with keyword targeting and conversion rate optimization, things like that. But yeah, content generation is, that's it. That's the name of the game. You have to do it.
I just heard 1 billion small business owners go, ugh. I was so hoping Jesse was going to give us a different answer.
Oh, I know.
I've spoken to said content is king. How does a business owner who's busy generate enough new content around their target market and product to be visible in that massive search engine of Google? Like, it seems like a never-ending treadmill that they need to be on. But how does that happen in a business?
Trust, for lack of a better term. It takes trust, because if you don't trust someone else to know your business, your product, your market, your messaging as well as you do, and you want to hold on to that to make sure that every plate that leaves your kitchen tastes the way that you would cook it, then you're going to have a tough time getting partners and subject matter experts to work with you to get things published, to have a cadence that you actually need to get it done. So yeah, more than a great rate from a freelance writer, and more than even a great strategy from a great content marketing agency, you need to have the trust and the faith that these experts in these fields know what they're doing and are going to bring you the results you're looking for. Yeah.
Is that because it then, once you have that trust, it takes it off your plate? In other words,
yeah.
If you've got a great content generation team that are putting out incredible, as you said, incredible, meals over the past or whatever, incredible content all the time, you don't have to check it. And it's something that's just driving your brand. It's driving your readership, your search results all the time. Cool. Is there, I'm asking this on a personal level. Is there a magic bullet for SEO? Can I rank for a term where, and you don't have to give me the magic bullet. Can I rank for a term with a 4-page website?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite example of this is just Google the phrase, "Is it Christmas?" And the number one result is isitchristmas.com. And it says no 364 days of the year. And it says yes on Christmas. And it has no other content on the entire site.
Wow.
And the silver bullet there is if you can answer the query better than anyone else on the internet, then eventually with some elbow grease, you should be able to rise to the top.
Fantastic.
So it's all about, it's how you match the intent of the user with your content. So if someone types in, again, best CRM, and you have this blog talking about why you're the best, and you don't mention any of the reasons why a CRM would be good, well, good luck. You're never going to get there. Yeah. But if you can concisely, we get this question all the time. How long should my blogs be? Just alongside how much should I write is how long should they be? And the answer is always, it depends. And the way you get your answer is you go look at the SERP. If Google's top 10 pages for your query have 3,000 words each, well, get ready. You're going to have to put in some work to outdo those pieces, right? But if your market, your competitors, your space has decided it's not worth it for us to put a lot of time and effort into these pieces, and they're ranking well there's a lot of opportunity for you to come in, be the de facto expert by writing a better piece. And maybe that better piece is only 500 words because everybody else has put in zero energy into actually writing a good piece. So yeah, it really depends on the user intent behind that query and how well your content matches that query. You figure out that part of it, you're in business.
Nice. I like it. So SEO itself has changed. So I know that Directive, you guys do that combination between SEO and PPC, and you kind of making sure that those things are aligned. Mm-hmm. But I know myself, having been in the space for a good number of years, that SEO itself has changed many, many, many times. In fact, it's probably changed since we started this interview to now. What's the answer there? Like, it used to be that hey, just generate 10,000 backlinks and you'll be at the top. And of course, Google went, guys, stop that. Is the answer, do you need backlinks? Do you need a mixture of content? Do you need multiple different social signals? Do you need all of those things? Do you need one of those things? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's extremely easy to be very cynical in this world of SEO and say, well, we're just going to be beholden to whatever Google wakes up and decides it wants to do tomorrow. When the reality is Google has been very consistent from, I would say day one, but really in the last 3 to 5 years, that what we value is quality content, above our, because what they really do, Google at the end of the day, they are a product for users. So they want to make sure that when people use their product, they have a good experience. So how do you, as a person who wants to play in that space, provide a good experience? Well, your content better be good. Your site better be fast. It better not be annoying with ads that pop up and autoplay videos and things like that, right? There's all these things that go into a good user experience. So if you truly think of user-first content, you're gonna have a really good chance of ranking well. But to your point about backlinking, that's another part of it too. Because if I built a site today that said, hey, I'm keep using CRM, it's just an easy go-to. I have the best CRM, right? And you have a page that says, hey, I have the best CRM. And you have Forbes, New York Times, and the top 10 pages talking about the best CRMs, pointing back to your website. Those are all votes. Those are all votes from the internet basically saying, this guy's got it figured out. We want to work with them. And Google looks at those votes and say, well, you're an authoritative website. A lot of people read you. A lot of people read you. We actually track to see how many people clicked over to Walter's page. When they did, they stayed there for a long time and they interact with the site. Those are all little kind of micro indications to Google that this page is probably pretty good and you're probably going to see a bump in the rankings because of it. No. But if someone comes to my site and they leave immediately, they leave me bad reviews, I don't get backlinks from people. All those things are, again, they're just signs to Google that there's no reason why on earth should they show my page to anyone if it's creating such a poor experience for their end user, right? They got to look out for their end user, not us. They don't look out for SEOs. They don't look out for businesses. They're looking out for their end user at the end of the day. So you have to as well as an SEO.
I love it. I think, regardless of the fact that we're talking about Google, one of the biggest companies in the world, or we're talking about XYZ engineering company down the road, so long as you're looking after the customer, you're going to get the better results. So that's Absolutely. A great answer. Like making sure that the customer of the content that you're producing is having a good experience with that content. And again, it's not about 10,000 spammy backlinks from 27,000 different closed MySpace accounts. It's about, it's more about the experience they have when they get to the page. I absolutely love it. So Jesse, you mentioned before that you've got 50, 60 people on the team now, which is incredible. Do you outsource at all within Directive Consulting still, or do you have everything in-house now?
Everything's in-house. The only thing that we possibly would pair up with somebody is writing content. Because again, we're not experts in a lot of these fields, right? So what we like to do is we've built up a pretty good network over the years of really talented writers. We introduce them to the client. None of it's done, white label. We don't do anything like that. We say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, here's Jimmy, here's Susie. They're both really good writers. Here's some samples. Here are their rates. If you would like to work with them, we'd love to add them to our team to help support you in your content generation.
Nice.
That's it. Other than that, we do our SEO in-house, our PPC in-house, our design in-house, which really is different. A lot of people do outsource that. And again, we don't do what we don't do or what we're not good at. So we don't pretend to do development work and then go hire a team in Belarus that, is directive, but not really, right? No, we try to be, we want to be above board. We want to have a very clear and transparent, relationship with our clients.
And how do you go about hiring the right people?
Oh man, that is an ever-evolving process. The real answer is it's not easy and it takes a lot of time.
Sure.
We've been spending a lot of time recently. I don't know if you're familiar with the book Who. It's all about hiring and how to find the right people for the job. And a lot of it is about getting away from your gut and really creating rubrics and scorecards that really quantify a lot of the things that you might be thinking or feeling, but actually put it on paper and let you compare different candidates to one another. So, diving into actually calling those referrals, right? It's one of those things that no one ever does. They never call the references. We're calling the references. We're seeing exactly who we're going to, start working with. We run them through personality assessments. We've run our own teams through personality assessments, our top performers, and say, hey, there seems to be a trend here when it comes to these type of personality traits. We also run them through hard skill assessments too. Hey, let's say we close Nike tomorrow and they had X, Y, and Z problem. What would you do about that? So we run through a few things plus, internal interviews with our leadership team as well. When we hire people, we'd much rather, it sounds crazy, right? I'd rather lose a client than a customer, I'd rather lose a client than an employee. So I want to make sure when we get an employee that they are the right fit, they're the right person to be on the team, and we stick with them as long as we possibly can.
Nice.
So yeah, we take hiring very seriously, and it's a time-consuming process, but for all the right reasons.
I love it. And what's the onboarding process then? So here's a new person. And again, coming back to you and I, our early days in that retail space, training went like this. I'd love to train you, but we don't have time today. So we're going to do deep end training, stand here, serve the customer. How do you guys vary from that, Jesse? Like what's your, I think I've lost you, your screen's frozen there, but I'm not sure if you can still hear me. How do you onboard somebody once you've gone through that hiring process?
Yeah, great question. Actually, I'm actually doing some onboarding next week, and I have a very specific process, and actually does start with the ethos. So the first thing I walk through an employee with is the history of Directive. So we have a slideshow of where we started with Garrett, our CEO, literally driving his moped around with flyers, handing him out to try and do some web development work, working on Fiverr, trying to sell social media calendars for $5, really telling the story of the first client we ever had who when they were a restaurant. We went to go check out their work, check out the restaurant the next day after they said, yeah, come on down and we'll work together. And the restaurant was boarded up. We really try to tell the story of where we came from to where we are now, to really give them the perspective of this is a really cool space that we're at right now. And we're really, like, everyone that's here that's been around for, been along for the ride is really, really proud of the work that's been done, and also humble. We don't forget our roots. We don't forget where we came from. And we don't want people who come to an organization now to just think that, like, oh, I'm at this hotshot cool agency that's always been this way. No, you got to figure out, like, we've really had a lot of grinding to get to this point. So we start there. We start at the beginning of the company. And then we do a breakdown by, their specific role, what the expectations are. We have these things called golden standards. What are the things that you should be doing? What's the mantra you should be repeating in your head when it comes to the work that you do? I always like to do the introductions, so I have them book time with every director to make sure they at least get some face time with them, even if they don't work with them directly, just so they understand a little bit more of the culture, especially with the remote, right? We don't all work in the same office. We have people all across the country and a couple of people around the globe. I got to make sure that people actually know who the human beings are that we work with. So a lot of it honestly has to do with the culture before it comes down to the work. We spend way more time on the culture, spend way more time on, who we work with, who we are as people, what we believe in, fundamentally our philosophies, before we even get into here's how you build a PPC campaign and here's how you do that. The cool thing is we actually built our own learning management system called Institute. That has about 40 plus courses. So we were, like most organizations, onboarding is really difficult. And if you don't make it a repeatable process, it can be very overwhelming and cumbersome. And maybe somebody's out sick or on vacation. You're like, well, I don't know what we do with the new guy or girl this week, right? So we built a learning management system that we can actually run our own new hires to. It's a product that we sell. Anyone can go out there right now and go check it out and go get themselves caught up on what's happening in the world of SEO and PPC, but also acts as a great training module for our own people that we onboard. And then we can kind of pair that with our internal clients and let them kind of take what they've learned, try out some mock projects internally, and then kind of figure out where they're best going to be suited. Not all SEOs are made equal. Some are content focused, some are technical, and we're going to figure that out in the onboarding process where their skill set really lies. But it's a pretty cool process.
Wow, that's so cool. Like to have that as a set process in place would give a lot of comfort, I think, to a new person coming on board as well, rather than just, hey, here's the deep end, see if you can swim. And like having that really process driven. You mentioned the Institute system that you'd set up internally. Was that there when you started with Directive, or is that something that you've brought in?
No, we launched that in January. I think actually right before January. I think the end of December we launched that. And it was it was awesome. It was a lot of work. A lot of credit goes to Brian Bowie, who runs our internal marketing, he's our marketing manager for Directive. And we really wanted to put something out there in the world that said, hey, if you wanted to learn SEO PPC right now, the really tough part is you don't know where to go, which makes it tough. And when you get there, you don't know why you should pay $10 or $500, or should I just watch these YouTube videos that are like 100 hours long? Like, what do I actually do? So we wanted to create something that was actionable, meaning that when you watch the lessons that we give you, we literally give you all the templates that we're working off of. So it's not like, hey, just pause it and like try to recreate it in Excel. It's like, no, here's the Excel file. Like, here's what it looks like. It's like a baking show. Here's what it looks like when it's done. Here's all the ingredients. And then we're going to walk you step by step to get to that final product. Wow. And then we also realized that, like, people don't want lectures. That just doesn't really, for some people do, that's their learning style. Most people, they want to get their hands on. So each lesson is actually hands-on. You're going to, like, if you came to Institute and said, I'm actually an in-house marketer, I need to get this product launched on PPC. How do I do that? You're going to get your market, you're going to get your messaging, you're going to get your budget, you're going to get your keywords, and you're going to have that done within 10 hours, which is awesome, as opposed to like Googling how to do PPC, which good luck. Like, you never know what you're going to get.
Wow, that's an incredible process. And did you go back through, this is probably a crazy question, but did you go back through your existing staff and reinstitute them and say, hey guys, time to make sure that everybody's at the same level? Or did you basically say, hey, you guys have been here with us long enough, you know what's going on, this is just for the newbies?
It's a combination of the two. I think the way we got to the Institute was taking the practices we had already been teaching all those people all along and putting it on paper, putting it in video form, and kind of just creating a standard around it. But it was stuff all those people on our staff had already learned. But yeah, actually, to your point, we have a philosophy internally as well called the skill pyramid, which we've outlined, a good 20 to 30 things that we think that all, alpha A+ amazing marketers should have under their belt. So if you want to learn PPC, but you've been SEO your whole life, well, we have this awesome Institute program that you get for free just by being a part of Directive. You can go learn the way we do PPC right now. So yeah, we've actually been able to lean on Institute as, if I have a performance review with someone, I'm like, hey, you're killing it in this area. Here's an area of opportunity. Here's a couple courses you can go take tomorrow that are going to get you, caught up in that area. So yeah, it's actually been a great tool for internal existing employees as well.
I love it, Jesse. I think it's great. And I'm hoping that there's some top level marketers that are listening to this right now that are going to be reaching out to you saying, hey, I want to come work with Directive. Like, it sounds like you guys have got the stuff going on. Jesse, I have to say, the hour that we spent, I felt like I've leveled up. Like, I feel like I've got the golden orb. I've actually beat the wizard at the end. I've leveled up in your world just by being able to spend some time with you. Guys, this is Jesse Seelhan. He is the managing director of Directive Consulting, a global agency that is doing all the right things for their clients and making sure that their people are looked after, their customers are looked after, and it sounds like it's just absolutely kicking goals. Jesse, thank you so much for your time, man. I am so grateful for the chance to come and to bounce back and forth with you. I've learned a whole bunch. I'm going to be going back through with a notepad myself and taking notes on the interview. But again, man, I'm so grateful for the time. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the conversation, man. It's always a pleasure to talk about what you do and what you love with someone who's actually interested. And yeah, it's been great.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And guys, if you're looking for incredible PPC campaigns, search campaigns, if you're looking to get more exposure for your brand and for your company, then of course, reach out to the team at directiveconsulting.com. You can see what they do there and run through their processes if you're the right fit. And you'll know that, as we talked about in the interview itself. But again, Jesse, you're amazing. And dude, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.